Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for the May Vault webinar. My name is Blakely and I'll be hosting the webinar for you today. During this webinar, we're focusing on budgeting for the upcoming fiscal year, how inflation will affect your budget, and some helpful tips and tricks to maximize your cash flow and just get the most out of your Vault membership. So if you have any questions for us about this presented material as we go along, please feel free to drop it in the chat. As a reminder, this is a general overview, so if you have specific questions regarding your chapter or national organization, please reach out to your support team by email. All right, let's get started. So one of the most important steps to setting your chapter up for financial success is building a successful budget. During our March webinar, we discussed the importance of establishing budget policies that ensure consistency from officer to officer. So just as a reminder, some examples of those budget policies are who's building that budget, what time frame that budget's going to cover, what the review process is going to look like, when the budget needs to be completed, and then when it needs to be communicated to your officers and your members. Many of you probably have these policies in place already, but it's always a great idea to just review your policies and ensure that they're all properly documented before you start building your budget. So let's talk about your expenses. A great starting point for budgeting expenses is defining your fixed versus flexible expenses. So fixed expenses are required. This includes items like rent, your meal plan, IFC or Panhellenic dues, and especially you want to make sure that your national dues insurance are included in your fixed expenses. We also recommend that you include a line item for your Omega-Phi collection fee in your budget. So you can find your chapter's Omega-Phi fee details under the accounting tab, and then going to the Vault billing fee details page. You'll see your chapter's pricing details there, and this is going to have the fee broken down by what it is per member per month, and then what it's going to look like per member per semester. You'll also have flexible expenses, and those are based on what you use. So this might include supplies, events that you're hosting, and all the associated expenses with that. It might include an apparel budget. Once you've identified your fixed and flexible expenses, you're ready to go ahead and begin creating an expense budget. So to create your budget, you'll want to review the previous year's expenses for an idea of what to expect. This is going to be easier for groups that have maintained that budget versus actual reporting or that have an organized filing system for invoices. If your chapter traditionally uses bill pay for expenses, then we're going to have that historical data right here in Vault for you. If you don't have this level of reporting available, this is a great time to make sure that you set up a system to record this information for future officers and leave them in a better position than you find yourself in today. Now, in the past, reviewing those previous expenses would have been a reliable indicator of what your budget for the upcoming year would look like. However, this year we want to urge you to account for the impact of inflation on the cost of your operations. Right now, costs are rising for every vendor and supplier that you're working with. Utility bills are increasing due to rising energy prices. Food prices have risen throughout the pandemic due to supply chain issues anyways, and they're anticipated to rise even higher now due to sanctions against Russia. Fabric costs have risen, so now t-shirt costs are rising as well. Even the cost of everyday items like cleaning supplies or plastic cutlery, those are all going to go up as well due to ongoing supply chain issues. And then you're also seeing that these rising transportation costs are being passed on to you as a consumer. So gas prices are going up, which means anything that's got to be shipped, those costs are going up as well. We anticipate that events are going to see a similar price hike. Venue prices are rising because staff and supply costs are soaring. And these are just some of the everyday expenses that you can expect to see continue to rise throughout the year. So when you're looking at your expenses this year and you're beginning to create that budget, we really do anticipate that there's going to be an impactful increase in expenses across the board, and that you're best to go ahead and prepare for that now. So with that in mind, once you've reviewed your previous year's expenses and you accounted for inflation, you'll want to input your fixed cost. Again, those are items that are required. Then you're going to add in your priority flexible expenses and then the committee or officer budgets as requested. Once you know exactly how much the chapter is going to be paying out of expenses, we can look at how your chapter can budget your income to cover those increased expenses that we expect to see. So first, you'll want to ensure that you've accounted for fixed and flexible expenses, savings, and contingency plans in your budget, and then make sure that you're billing enough to cover your chapter's expenses. You're going to need to adjust fees for your members, such as chapter dues, rent, meal plans, and national dues as needed. We are recommending that organizations strongly consider increasing dues, rent, fees, and really your overall budget by at least 10% to maintain standard operations the year ahead. Now, raising dues is not possible for every chapter, and we know that. So if your chapter is unable to increase chapter dues, you'll need to review those flexible expenses and make some adjustments. Some ideas for the ways that you could cut costs include, getting creative with your event venues, cutting back on the number of t-shirts that your chapter is ordering, or looking into cheaper alternatives to the supplies you typically order, or even maybe just shifting the supplier that you're ordering from. Once you've decided on your income budget, you should also review chapter policies and bylaws for items such as late fees, fines, and early payment discounts. These are all incentives and ways to ensure timely payment from your members, but they're not income that you can rely on. So any money received from these should be considered bonus funds and shouldn't necessarily be accounted for in your chapter's projected income. So I also want to take a moment to talk about how you can maximize your cash flow, which can also help buffer having to pass on some of these inflation costs to your members by making sure that the most possible cash is ending up in your chapter's hands. A great way to do this is to encourage your members to pay via ECheck, which is simply using their bank routing and account number instead of a credit or debit card to pay. Card companies charge a percentage fee for every transaction that's processed. So when a member is paying via credit card or debit card, there is a 3.05% processing fee. And so you're losing 3.05% of their payment to what we call the merchant discount fee. American Express is going to be the only exception to this, and they actually have a higher fee of 3.15% on their transactions. You can take a look at your OmegaFi account register in Vault, and if you use the summary view and adjust the dates of the report to your last fiscal year, you can really get an idea of how much your chapter had withheld from your cash flow just due to the credit card company's processing fees. So if you see that your chapter has a high usage of card payments, there are just a couple of ways that you can use to encourage those members to log in and pay by ECheck. The first course of action that you can take is just communicating to your chapter that there is a preference for them to pay via ECheck. You can include a note on the statement message under the billing tab in Vault. You can make an announcement at your chapter meeting, or you can send out a mass email from the communications tab, reminding your chapter of the importance of logging into their MyOmegaFi accounts and setting up those ECheck payments. While you're at it, this is also a great time to encourage members to set up autopay so that they are staying on top of those dues and that the process for them is automatic. If you do use the mass email tool, make sure to include parent emails on that communication, since parents are often the ones who are logging into the account and actually making those payments. Another way that some chapters encourage ECheck payments is by including an accounting fee in their scheduled charges. So if your total chapter dues are $100, then maybe you use a $5 accounting fee to offset the cost of any card payments. And then to encourage ECheck payments, you would offer to reverse that fee for any member who pays by ECheck. I'll also mention that there is a little fringe benefit to having members pay via ECheck, and that's that they do have to sign into their MyOmegaFi account to set up that payment. This means that a member is more likely to complete their registration and sign their member contract while they're already in the account, and it ensures that their account is complete and up to date. So once you've determined your income and expenses, you're ready to enter your budget details into Vault. OmegaFi's budget tool makes creating and maintaining a budget easy, and it incorporates your budget into accounting reports to save you time. So if you'd like to learn more about how to use the budget tool in Omegafy, you'll see our March Vault webinar, which is available in our Help Center under the webinar section. So just click here, and then you'll see it listed under our recent webinars. So Vault does a lot more than just payment processing, but it does work best when you use Vault to manage all of your income and expenses. So whether money is collected through Vault or collected locally through other means, you are paying for this service. So to get the most bang for your buck, the best practice is to use us to process all of your members' payments. As an officer, this helps to decrease the liability that you face, and it improves how Vault works for your chapter. So we're going to take a closer look at how using Vault for all of your payment processing can benefit your chapter. Your organization pays Omegafy a fee to use our service. And as I mentioned previously, this is a fee that you can review easily and budget for your upcoming fiscal year. We're going to take a quick look at all of that fee covers. So your service fee covers not only payment processing, but also the assistance that you receive from our support team on everything from planning billing to managing member and parent questions. Member and parents can pay their bills online, by phone, by mobile app, and can pay via check, credit card, or bank draft. So there's lots of options for them. And it also includes daily deposits and bill pay services. That's also all covered under your service fee. Using Omegafy increases your collection percentage as well, and it also takes some of the burden off of your admin. So it helps to streamline processes and helps you spend really more time like enjoying your membership and less time, chasing down members to ensure that their balances get paid. There are a lot of liabilities and risks that you take on when you use other methods to collect payments from your members. There is a risk that a member could report paying all of their dues, but then an officer's ledger would show that they only paid half. So if a member is saying that they've paid their dues and the officer is saying something else, that puts you in a tough situation. If everything goes through Vault, though, there's this virtual paper trail of what was actually received when, and you have all of the payment details. When you're collecting locally, there's a lot more room for error. So if an officer writes a receipt for cash received, but instead of writing that they received 600, they write that they received 800, that causes an issue. If the officer receives cash and then between receiving it and getting to the bank, it gets lost, that puts them at a liability for covering that loss. It also puts more of responsibility onto the officer. So once the cash is collected, then the officer has to keep the money in a secure location, find time to get out and take it to the bank, deposit the money, and then manually enter those payments received in Vault to make sure that your reporting stays up to date. There are also many risks pertaining to accepting payments via peer-to-peer apps, such as Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal. We have a recent blog post on the Omegafy website about this, but the one that I really want to cover that would affect you personally as an officer receiving funds this way is that you would become liable potentially for taxes on the funds that you receive. So when an officer is using their personal bank account to collect money from other members of the chapter through these peer-to-peer apps, it creates revenue for that student and exposes them to a tax liability. So all peer-to-peer payment apps are now required to enforce newly passed legislation that would require them to issue users a 1099-K tax form if somebody earns, or in this case receives, $600 or more annually in income for these goods and services. So a copy of that same form would be issued to the IRS, and then the IRS is going to consider those funds income of the student who is receiving those funds. And they may expect that the student would need to then pay appropriate taxes on that revenue. So there have actually already been reports of several officers that have been audited by the IRS because they've been receiving $600 or more through these methods, and then they're being fined because of that. In addition to having to deal with the IRS, you would still have the same liabilities this way as you do when you're receiving cash payments, because you still have to move money between your bank account and your chapter's bank account, and then also manually enter those payments into Vault. So there's still room for error, even if you are having this paper trail or this virtual paper trail by using a peer-to-peer app. And again, whether you're allowing us to do the work for you or not, you are still paying for our service. So as I mentioned earlier, our fee does cover more than payment processing, but this is part of our service. So, let us do that for you, and let us kind of cut out some of these risks and liabilities that you face otherwise. When you allow OmegaFi to process all of the payments, we also process the payments immediately. We post into the member's account immediately, so they can be seen by either the member or the parent. We also immediately transfer funds to the appropriate bill pay or bank accounts based on what settings you might have configured. So if you have deposit splits set up to send money to your national dues and fees account or your house corporation, we are unable to send that money correctly if you're collecting things locally. So it can affect the way that your cash flow kind of comes in through Vault. If you're collecting some money locally and some through the system, it can really create an issue with your deposit splits and having to get those deposit splits, caught up, so to speak, from the locally received cash payments. So it's extremely easy for members to submit payments. They can submit through their My OmegaFi account. They can submit through the OmegaFi website without logging in. They can call us to submit payment, or they can set up automatic payments as well. So, at the beginning of the year, they can log in, make sure all their information is up to date, and sort of set it and forget it, which makes it really convenient for them to keep on top of their dues. Another benefit of using Vault for payment processing is that it feeds directly into the account registers and reports that are found under the accounting menu in Vault. So first, here are the account registers, which can be located under the accounting menu, under the chapter section, and then under account registers. These are running registers where officers can see that the activity every day. This happens every business day, so there is a complete transparency and it's secure. There are 4 account registers. So you have a bank account register that your chapter can maintain to reflect the activity in your local bank accounts. Here you'd have to manually enter all disbursements, receipts, and transfers that occur in those accounts. We also have bill pay account registers. So each bill pay fund will have its own register that lists transaction details for all receipts and disbursements that occurred through bill pay. Each officer purchasing card would have its own register. And then you also see a register for the OmegaFi account over the last 30 days, which would show all of the activity, the Vault billing fees, the merchant discount fees, and then the distribution of funds between your different bill pay accounts. Another important reason to process all payments through Vault is for tax filing purposes. For more detailed information about tax filing, you can watch our April webinar that's found in the Help Center. But when you're filing your 990, there are questions like, is your chapter's gross receipts $50,000 or less? And that can really be answered by Vault for you through our income statement report. And it helps make your filing process for the 990s easier. And then lastly, Vault offers an array of reports that can be used outside of just these account registers. So there will be times that you'll need to send income reports to your national headquarters or look through the disbursement summary report. If all of the information is in Vault, these reports build themselves, and it's really easy to pull those and have the information on hand quickly. If the activity is not in Vault, you'll have to do cleanup and go plug in some of that information manually for anything that was done outside of Vault. Ultimately, allowing us to process payments for you should save you time and frustration, and it should protect you from some of the risk and liabilities that collecting outside of the system open you up to. All right, I'll pause here again and just see if anybody had any questions about anything that we've covered so far. So I had somebody say, how would you advise us to use an accounting fee? This is a chapter that has a large number of members who are processing payments via credit card already, and they would like to reduce that? That's a great question. So if you're going to use an accounting fee, you want to just go ahead and take a look at your per member fee in Vault. Again, that's going to be under accounting and then under Vault billing fee details. And that's going to show you what's set up for your current semester. And you can add that in as a line item. You can add, I see a lot of chapters who have like an accounting fee that's part Omega 5 fee and then part like merchant discount card fee. So they would lump that in to say, $30 or whatever for the member, which would cover both whatever the overage, the 3% or so of other charges would be, and then also their Omega 5 fee. And then they do a credit back to that amount after a member makes a payment. So what you basically say is you would tell your members that if they're going to pay, and I'm going to use easy numbers again, it's $105 total or $100 if you pay by ECheck. And then once they make that payment, you would go in and create a credit to their account for that additional $5. And so that's how that would work. All right, somebody asked, could we have a refund or credit be auto applied for these accounting fees? It would be a manual process in this case. There are other fees, there are other credits that you can have applied to a member's account automatically, specifically thinking of our early payment discounts, which are a great way to try to like front load your cash flow by encouraging members to pay their full semester dues up front. That's something that you can automate in the system. But for accounting fees, there's not a way for us to program a credit to the account if they pay by ECheck. So that would be a manual process. So we had another question about how we would add that that accounting fee for those for the merchant discount fee. So can the percentage of a card fee be added instead of a manual credit? Yes, you could choose to do that instead. So again, that's just up to you how you want to include that or roll that into your budget. You're absolutely able to just increase all of your member dues by that 3.05%. You could come up with something along those lines. In terms of it being a large number of manual entries, there is a way for you to quickly add like multiple transactions. You can add it to a group, or you could add it to up to 15 members, where that process would be really simple. So we have some videos about how to add transactions in our Help Center, and I'm happy to reach out to the person who's asking this question specifically after this call and just make sure that you have the link to that, and it'll show you how to enter up to 15 transactions. You can set it up so it is all the same amount that you were entering those credits in, and it would take you maybe like a few minutes to process all of the credits that you need to process at once. All right, so it looks like that was all of our questions today. If anybody comes up with additional questions or has any feedback, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to get feedback from you. All you need to do is reach out to your usual support team email and let them know that you had a question following this webinar, and we'd be happy to get that answer for you. All right, everybody, you have a great day, and we will see you next time.